My name is Daniel Rojas. I'm 55 years old, and if you'd asked me a year ago what I believed in, I would have said concrete, steel, and the quiet dignity of old buildings that refuse to collapse despite time, neglect, or human cruelty. But that was before Clara, before Lapa started breathing down my neck, before I learned that in Rio even love can be a crime if you love the wrong person at the wrong time. I came back to the city in February 2023, not as a tourist, not as a local either. More like a ghost returning to inspect the ruins of his own life. My marriage had ended 3 years prior, quietly, cleanly, the kind of divorce that leaves no scars but empties you all the same. My wife took the house in Niterói, I took a suitcase and a lifetime of blueprints, and for a while I drifted. Lisbon, Medellin, Montevideo. But Rio never lets you go. It waits, patient, hungry, until you're ready to come back and be devoured all over again. I rented a small apartment in Santa Teresa, top floor, iron balcony, view of the tram tracks curving down the hill like a question mark. The building was over 100 years old, its walls sweating history. My landlord, Donna Elza, a woman with eyes like cracked porcelain and a voice that sounded like church bells at dusk, warned me. This neighborhood remembers everything, Daniel, even the things you try to forget. I thought she was being poetic. I didn't know she was giving me a prophecy. The first time I saw Clara, it was raining. Not the gentle tropical drizzle locals call chuvinha, but a proper Rio deluge, thunder rolling off Corcovado like the mountain was clearing its throat. I ducked into a bar near the foot of the Arcos da Lapa, Bar do Zé Pequeno, though nobody called it that. Just the red door, the kind of place where the beer is cold, the music is samba from the 70s, and everyone minds their own business unless you look like trouble. She sat at the far end of the counter, back to the wall, facing the door. Smart, always watching the exit. She wore a green dress, emerald, almost military in cut, but it was the way she held her glass that caught me. Fingers long and precise, like someone used to handling fragile things, antique things. Her hair was pinned up, but a few strands had escaped, clinging to her neck. She hadn't touched her drink, just stared at the street through the rain-streaked glass like she was waiting for someone who would never come, or someone who'd come far too soon. I didn't plan to speak to her, but then she turned, and our eyes met. And in that instant, something shifted in the air, like the city itself had drawn a breath and held it. She smiled, not a flirtatious smile, a sad one, the kind that says, "I know you, stranger, and I know how this ends." I walked over, ordered a Brahma, asked if the seat beside her was taken. She said no, in a voice that was low and slightly hoarse, like she'd been singing all night, or crying. We talked about nothing at first, the rain, the tram schedule, the fact that the arches were lit differently now. Too bright, she said, too touristy. They used to glow like embers, she murmured. Now they just glare. Her name was Clara. She said she worked restoring old pianos, specifically uprights from the 1920s and 30s. People throw them away like junk, she said, swirling her caipirinha. But inside they still have music. You just have to listen past the rust. I told her I was an architect, recently returned. She nodded as if she already knew. Then quietly, "You sketch buildings, don't you?" I was stunned. "How did you—" "You have ink stains on your right thumb, and your eyes. They don't look at people. They look at shapes, at angles, at what's beneath the surface." That night we walked through Lapa until 3 a.m., not holding hands, not yet, just walking side by side, past closed bookstores, sleeping street vendors, couples arguing in whispers under neon signs. She pointed out details I'd never noticed. A faded mural of Chico Buarque hidden behind a billboard, a door knocker shaped like a weeping angel, the way the cobblestones near Rua do Riachuelo still bore the grooves from horse-drawn carriages. "Rio isn't just a city," she said. "It's a palimpsest. Every layer hides another wound, I kissed her for the first time beneath the arches, with the moon slicing through the clouds like a blade. It wasn't passionate, it was desperate. Like we were both drowning, and this was the only lifeline. For 3 weeks, I saw her nearly every day. Mornings at Confeitaria Colombo, where we'd sit beneath the stained glass dome and talk about Oscar Niemeyer's curves versus Lucio Costa's grids. Evenings in the alleys of Santa Teresa, where she'd play me songs on abandoned pianos in old houses for sale. She never invited me to her apartment, never gave me her phone number outright. I had to write it on a napkin she handed me after I asked twice. And then, on a Tuesday in early March, she vanished. No text, no call. When I went to the bartender shrugged. Haven't seen her in days. I called the number, straight to voicemail. I waited outside the piano restoration shop she mentioned, only to find it shuttered, the sign faded, the windows dusty. A neighbor said the place had been closed for years. I told myself she needed space, that maybe I'd moved too fast. But my gut said otherwise. She reappeared 8 days later, standing in my doorway at 2 a.m., drenched, shivering, her left eye swollen shut. She didn't cry, didn't explain, just collapsed into my arms like a puppet with its strings cut. I carried her inside, wrapped her in blankets, made tea. When she finally spoke, her voice was a threadbare whisper. He found out I was seeing someone. Who? She didn't answer, just stared at the floor. But I saw it then. The fear wasn't just of violence, it was of exposure, of a system so vast, so entrenched, that even the police might be part of it. I pressed gently. Over the next few days, fragments emerged. Vitor Almeida, a man with no official title but immense influence, owned 6 cultural restaurants in downtown Rio, Casa do Samba, Terraço Memórias, Antigo Salão. Beautiful, historic spaces, perfect for laundering money. Tourists pour in, pay in cash, leave with photo ops and overpriced feijoada. Meanwhile, the real transactions happen in back rooms. Property deeds swapped, shell companies created, politicians greased. Clara wasn't just his girlfriend. She was his bookkeeper, his ghost accountant, fluent in finance, fluent in silence. But she'd started copying files, building an exit strategy, and then she met me. I thought, maybe I could have both, she admitted one night, curled against me on the sofa, listening to the tram rattle past outside. Freedom and love. But in Rio, you only get one, and if you're lucky, it lasts a week. I should have walked away, called the consulate, booked a flight. But I'm 55. I've spent decades restoring buildings that no one else cared about. Maybe I thought I could restore her too. Instead, I started watching. I mapped Vitor's known movements, his black Range Rover, his routine, lunch at Terraço Memórias every Thursday, visits to a private clinic in Botafogo, late-night meetings at a warehouse near the port disguised as an art gallery. I used old contacts, engineers, city inspectors, a retired journalist named Luis, who owed me a favor from a corruption probe in 2010. Piece by piece, a picture formed. Vitor wasn't just laundering money. He was tied to a militia faction operating out of Barra, with links to port officials and even a state deputy. And Clara? She was trapped. Not just by fear, but by leverage. Vitor held documents implicating her in past transactions, enough to land her 10 years in prison if she talked. Then came the night I saw them together. I'd followed her from Lapa, against her wishes, against my better judgment. She'd said, "Don't. If he sees you, it's over." But I couldn't help it. I watched from across the street as she met Vitor near the Carioca aqueduct. He didn't yell, didn't hit her, just stood close, speaking so low even the street dogs seemed to lean in. His hand rested on her arm, not gripping, just anchoring, like a leash made of velvet. When she returned to my place hours later, she was pale. "He knows about the USB," she said. "He's moving everything tonight. The offshore accounts, the property transfers. If I don't show up tomorrow, he'll assume I've betrayed him." "What's on the drive?" Everything, bank trails, photos of bribes, names, dates, a recording of him admitting to ordering a hit on a city auditor who refused to sign off on a fake renovation permit. She looked at me, eyes wide with a terrifying clarity. "Daniel, I can't go back, but if I don't, he'll come for you." I called Captain Rodrigo Mendez. We'd worked together years ago when I consulted on a case involving illegal demolitions in Gamboa. He was clean, rare in this city. I met him at a 24-hour diner in Tijuca, far from prying ears. I handed him a copy of the drive. He didn't even look at it, just stared at me. "Daniel, you have no idea who you're dealing with. Almeida doesn't just own restaurants. He owns judges, cops, maybe even my captain. If I take this to internal affairs, they'll bury it. And me. And you? You'll be found floating in Guanabara with your hands tied behind your back and a note in your pocket saying, 'Suicide.' Then what do we do?" He leaned in. "We wait. We watch. And when he slips, and he will, because men like him always do, we take him down fast and dirty. But you disappear with her tonight. We planned it. A safe house in Petropolis, a borrowed car, fake IDs from a contact in the federal police. But Clara never made it to the rendezvous. She texted at 1:17 a.m. "He's coming, don't come for me. Save yourself." I went anyway. I found her building in Gloria, surrounded by unmarked cars. No sirens, no uniforms, just men in dark clothes standing too still. I circled the block 3 times, heart hammering. Then I saw her, on the 3rd-floor balcony, just for a second, holding up a single finger. Wait. I waited across the street under a jacaranda tree for 6 hours. At dawn, a black sedan pulled away. I ran upstairs. Her apartment was ransacked, drawers overturned, piano keys scattered like bones. But on the kitchen counter, taped to a coffee mug, was a note. "Tram, Santa Teresa, 3 a.m. Final run. Bring the drive. Burn after." I didn't sleep for 2 days. Watched every tram, every alley, every shadow. At 2:45 a.m., I was crouched behind the ticket booth at the base of the Santa Teresa Hill, drive in my pocket, a switchblade in my boot, something I never thought I'd carry again. She appeared at 3:03. Not from the tram, from the stairs behind Parque das Ruinas, alone, suitcase in hand. She looked thinner, haunted, but her eyes were alive. "We have to go, now," she whispered. We turned toward my car, a nondescript white Corolla parked near Ladera de Santa Teresa. Halfway there I heard it, the low purr of an engine. Then another behind us. "Run," I said. We sprinted into the maze of alleys, past laundry lines, feral cats, the skeletal remains of an abandoned mansion covered in graffiti. She knew the shortcuts, better than I did, but they were faster. The gunshot came from above, from a rooftop near Beco das Cancelas. I felt the air split beside my ear. Clara screamed, stumbled, went down hard against a mural of Christ the Redeemer with bleeding hands. Blood bloomed on her shoulder, dark and fast. I dragged her into a doorway, pressed my jacket to the wound. Her breath came in shallow gasps. The drive in my pocket. "Give it to Mendez. Don't trust anyone else." Sirens in the distance. Real ones this time. The shooters vanished like smoke. At the hospital in Saúde, they stabilized her. Mendez arrived an hour later, out of uniform, holding 2 coffees. "We got him," he said quietly. "Not Almeida, but one of his lieutenants. Panicked after the shooting. Talked. We're raiding 3 locations at dawn. For 3 days, I barely left her bedside. She drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes calling my name, sometimes whispering numbers. Account codes, I realized later. On the 4th night, I went home to shower, change clothes, bring her books. When I returned, her bed was empty. No discharge papers, no police guard, just a folded blanket and, on the pillow, a single piano key, middle C, wrapped in a scrap of green fabric. Mendez confirmed it days later. Clara had checked herself out, disappeared into the system's blind spots. "She's safe," he said. "But if she contacts you, Daniel, don't respond. Not ever. Her survival depends on you believing she's gone. I still live in Santa Teresa, still sketch the arches, the tram lines, the crumbling beauty of a city that devours dreamers and spits out legends. I walk through Lapa every Friday night, not hoping to find her, just reminding myself that she was real. That for a few weeks, in a city built on illusions, I loved someone who tried to outrun her own ghost. Sometimes late at night, I hear piano music drifting from an open window in Gloria, just one note, over and over, middle C. I never go inside, because I know some doors once opened can never be closed again, and some women aren't meant to be saved. They're meant to save you from believing you're already too old to burn.